Hi boys and girls, I am now going to show you our follow-up activity to the book I read, The Rainbow Fish. So make sure you've watched this video first of Mrs. McAdams reading this story about the rainbow fish, and then you can do this project at home. Okay, now if you remember, we read about the rainbow fish who had all those beautiful shiny scales, right, but no friends, and he started to give away his scales one at a time to the fish who wanted them. And he ended up feeling really good about that, and then ended up with a lot of friends. So it had a very nice ending to it. So I'm going to show you two ways you can make a rainbow fish. The first way is the way we would have done it at school, but if you don't have all these materials, there's another way you can make the fish, or you could try both. So say hello to Caleb. He's behind the camera. He is doing all the filming for me on this one. So hello to Caleb, even though you can't see him. So, okay, so here, what you need, boys and girls, the first thing you need is a piece of paper. Now, if you have any of this thicker paper at home, it's called cardstock. This is better paper to use for this project. If you don't have it, regular white paper is fine as well. And in fact, it can really be any color because you're going to end up covering it with all kinds of things, but white is probably the best. So the first way I'm going to show you, I'm going to move this one over. The first way I'm going to show you is the way we would have done it at school. So to do it this way, what you need is some of our Elmer's glue. You need a glue stick. You need a whole bunch of tissue paper, all cut into little squares. And if you remember, when we made the hot air balloons on Valentine's Day, this is the same type of squares we used. So different colored tissue paper cut into little squares. Then you need just a little bit of warm water and a brush. This is going to be for the glue. I'm going to show you that last. Okay, now normally Mrs. McAdams would already give you a fish pattern. In this case, you're going to need to draw your own fish pattern or have a grown-up help you draw a fish. There's lots of different ways you can make a fish. This is what it looks like as we get going. So you can see these fish look a little bit different, don't they? And this fish can go this way or this way. It's up to you, okay? So the first thing you do when you're making it like this is you're going to be using your glue stick, and you are just going to go ahead after you trace it. Make sure you do it in a dark marker because you're going to want to be able to see the outline because you're going to cut this out when you're done with it, okay? So then what you do is you take all those different pieces of tissue paper and you glue them all over your fish, okay? So you can see I already started this one. Now when we do this, just like at school, you always want to do just a little bit of glue and then put your tissue on. And it's fine if your tissue overlaps the other pieces, and it's fine if it hangs outside the edge a little bit because we're going to end up cutting that. And if you remember, the reason why we only put a little bit of glue on is sometimes that glue will dry up if we put too much on and then wait too long to put the tissue on. So as you can see, I've just about filled this because I started this earlier. So there we go. And you can make it as many different colors as you want. Our rainbow fish certainly has a lot of pretty colors. Or if you just want to use a few colors, that is up to you. You can also decide if you want to do it all the way all over the tail, or you could leave the tail like this and color that with marker if you want. But I'm going to go ahead and do the whole thing, except I'm going to make his tail more of a blue color, because as you can see on the cover of the book, it's mostly blue and purple. But everybody can do their fish whatever way they like, okay? So what you have to do though is make sure that you have all the white covered as you go through this. So you can see I'm putting all that down, making sure that I have all the white colored. Sneak a little bit of glue into there, okay? And the reason why we need two different kinds of glue is in a minute we are going to be, whoops, need more glue there, don't I? We're actually going to be painting this fish with some glue. There we go. And do one more piece to cover that up, making the tail a little bit more blue. What do you think? Does it look good? Okay, and again, it's okay that I've gone outside the line because we're going to cut that, okay? Then the next part is your grown-up can help you with this. There's a little bit of warm water. You want that water to be warm. And then you're going to squirt some Elmer's glue in there, like that. And then you're going to stir it up. We want the glue to be a little bit more like paint, right? We're gonna add a little bit more. Okay, that's the fun part, squeezing the glue in there. All right, so we mix it up, mix it, mix it, mix it, mix it. Until all that white, you don't see all that white in there. Okay, there we go. Now the trick to this, boys and girls, is you don't want to use a lot because you don't want it to be super wet, but enough that you're now going to cover all that tissue with this gluey water. Okay, so little tap tap of the brush, and Mrs. McAdams was not prepared. What I should have done, and I'll do this now, is to make sure that I have something underneath this in case I drip or spill. There we go, now we're set. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our brush and we are just going to paint over all of the tissue on this fish. Now you'll notice I'm starting in one spot and working my way this way so I don't forget where I started, okay? And you're gonna put a nice coating of this wet glue all over your fishy, okay? So you keep doing it. See how it gets nice and shiny like that? All right, and then you get all those little bumps and crevices in there. Now, if some of that starts to move, when we're done, if we have some white spots that have appeared because some of the tissue has moved, we can lay more tissue right, oops, see how that happened? We can lay more tissue right on top of the other tissue. I'll show you that in just a minute. Okay, now I see that I've got the whole body covered. Now we're gonna work on the tail. All right, here we go. And you can see I'm not using a lot, am I? But you can see I'm getting it nice and wet, but not too wet. Because if we get it too wet, what's gonna happen to the tissue? Correct, it's gonna rip, isn't it? We don't want it to rip. Oh, see how that happened? No big deal. Because now what I can do, look at that. Shiny and pretty, huh? Okay, Caleb likes it. He's nodding his head, yes. Okay, so now I have a few spots here where the tissue did not stick. So now I can take another piece and I can just tap that on there. And it's already wet enough. I don't even have to put more glue on top of it. I notice I have a little hole here, so I can lay that one on. Now that one I'm gonna put a little more on, like this. I've got a little hole right there, so I'm gonna use that one, and just a little more on this. Okay. All right, what do we think? Good, okay. Now that it's covered, what's gonna happen next is it's going to need to dry, okay? And then once it dries, you're gonna get a grown-up to help you cut it out. What you're gonna find is when you go to cut it out, it's gonna be really hard because the glue's gonna dry, the paper's gonna be really hard. And then you're going to cut it out so you have your fish shape. You're not quite done then though. The last part after it's cut out is you're gonna need to make an eye. Normally we would use the googly eyes. I don't have any googly eyes here at home. So you can make your own eye to put on your fish. If you have googly eyes at home, awesome, you could put one on. You could make one out of paper, or you could just draw one on there with a magic marker. I'm not gonna do that yet because my fish is still wet. So the very last part then that your grown-up can help you with is this. This is aluminum foil, and your grown-ups probably have this in the kitchen somewhere. Now, if you remember in the story, by the time we got to the end of the story, Rainbow Fish, how many scales, glittery scales, did he have left? Just one, right? And so we're gonna make one glittery scale to put on your rainbow fish. So this is where your grown-up again can help you decide what shape and size you want that to be. And this is very thin like paper, so it's very easy to cut. You could even draw on it first if you want. You could make a little shape like that. The fins are kind of like a half of an oval. And you can just cut out your own little scale for your fish. There's no right or wrong way to make the shape. And then you can trim it, whatever you want that to look like. And then once your fish is completely dry, you take a little bit of your glue from your glue stick and you glue your special scale on your rainbow fish, okay? Now that part I can't do yet, but once it dries, I'll cut it out and then I'll send you a short little video of the last parts, putting the eye on and putting this on, okay? All right, so that's one type, or one way to make the fish. Now, what if you don't have tissue paper and Elmer's glue? Well, there's another way you can make your rainbow fish. So, same way we did it before, you make your own pattern for your fish. Look, see how they're a little bit different? So I drew this pattern on my fish. And then I can do my own scales and color them in with magic marker or crayon if you want to. So your grown-up can help you with this. Grown-ups, I'll show you how to make some scales if you're going to help, or kids, you can do this too. The first thing I like to do is just on this part, make a little bit of a half circle. That helps leave some room for an eye and a mouth for your fish. See right there? Now the next part is this is where you're going to make the scales. Now, if you want to do a lot of coloring in a lot of different colors, you can make smaller scales like I did on this fish, or if you don't want to do quite as much coloring, you can make bigger scales. So here's how you make scales, okay? Now scales, you start up here by the front and you just start to draw. And if you look, boys and girls, they look just like our letter this week. What is our letter of the week? It's a U. We're making a whole bunch of U's on our rainbow fish. So even if you want to turn it this way, that might help. So I'm going across and I'm making different size U's. You see them? As scales on my fish. And you can make them little or big. Okay? Then you go down and do the same thing on the next row. Start right here and make a U, and they don't have to line up. They could be long, they could be short. Again, depends on how much coloring you want to do. The bigger you make them, the less scales you have to color. If you make them smaller, there's half a U. And then you keep going. Keep making scales. Big ones if you like big scales, the little ones if you like little scales. And then you keep going. Oh, that's a big one, isn't it? A little one there. See how? And then you just keep going. And so on, and so on, and so on. Okay? Ta-da! It's funny how we're making U's, and that was our letter this week. Okay, this is probably my last row. Let's see. Well, maybe not quite. Now again, you decide if you'd like to have scales on your tails. Those two worms rhyme. Scales on your tails, you can keep going, or you can stop at the tail, and you can make that tail a different color or pattern, because you'll notice the rainbow fish had a little bit of a different pattern on there. Then you turn your fish to the side. Now, you might want to have your fish going this way or that way. Here's my example. Here's my fishy that I did. You can see I started coloring the scales all different colors. You can make different patterns. You can use any color that you want, and I still have to draw the rest of my scales and color those in. Once I color them all in, I'm going to cut out that fish, and I'm going to do that right now, even though I'm not quite done, because I don't have to wait for this one to dry, right? So I'm going to cut it out just to show you how you cut it. I would suggest you color it all first before you cut it out, but just like we learned in class, remember, you're always turning the paper, not the scissors. You don't want the scissors to come towards you. Always shift your hand so you're cutting, then you can stop. Right, turn your paper, put your scissors back in. Around and around and around. Now I like that black line on there because that makes it a little easier for me to tell where I have to cut. I'm gonna stop, start right back here at the nose again. We always said it's slow and careful, right? The smaller we go and the slower we go, the nicer it turns out. Okay, I'm gonna turn the fish. Okay, there we go. Then once the scales are all colored and you've done your nose and your eyes and your face, then you can do the same thing. You can cut out a special silver scale for your rainbow fish, just like we did on the other one. And if you decide, boys and girls, that you'd like to add more than one shiny scale to your rainbow fish, I think that would be okay. All right, so there's my shiny scale. So once these are all colored, I will pick the special place that I'd like to have the scale, and I will take my glue stick and I will glue that on, right? And then you'll have a rainbow fish, okay? So tune in a little bit later. I will post on Seesaw the pictures of, or a little video of the finished rainbow fish with the tissue and the finished rainbow fish with the magic marker. So you can try it either way or both if you want to make more than one rainbow fish. Okay? So that's the rainbow fish, boys and girls. Enjoy that. Have a great day.